November the 6th, 1983, Hawkins, Indiana. Young Will Byers disappears one evening while riding his bike back home from a long RPG session. This frightening event becomes the first of many to befall the small Midwestern town. From that point on, bizarre occurrences and new pieces of supernatural mystery begin to unfold, forever turning the lives of some Hawkins residents upside down. Hey folks, welcome to Life of Oz, and in today's segment I'm doing a video review for Stranger Things, the board game. Huge fan of Stranger Things. My family and I are fans of the series. The final season is currently in production. My wife and I are doing a watch through of the entire seasons, four seasons so far. We've currently just started with season 1 again, and it's a really great series. Lots of obviously 80s nostalgia, pop culture references, and a really good storyline as well, which makes it one of the few series on Netflix that I'd give a very high rating to. And you can see from my blog, huge fan of the series. So I managed to get this game. IP games, are they good? They are, for board games at least. And the same goes for some of the other IP games I own, such as Doom. I've got quite a few of the Marvel stuff, which are really great. This one I picked up quite by chance. I've also got Hellboy, which is, I'm doing a playthrough of that a little bit later. This one I picked up quite by chance. I was actually trying to source another game, which is similar in gameplay, and that's called Horrified. I'll do a review and playthrough of that soon. This one by Cool Mini or Not. It's a board game by Rob Davio. Second Cool Mini or Not game that I've got. I've also got the Marvel United X-Men game, which is a fantastic little game. Also cooperative. This one's cooperative, 1 to 4 players, and it's set in the Stranger Things universe. You play as some of the main characters from the game, from the series in this game, and you move around the board. Very pandemic-like in terms of the actual gameplay. Those familiar with the pandemic system, but not a legacy type game. There's a replayability in there. The game has actually got the first 2 seasons of Stranger Things, so season 1 and season 2. Similar gameplay in both, different objectives and slightly different mechanics to both, I would say, which does give the game quite a lot of replayability and lots of characters to play from. But without further ado, let's have a look and see what's inside the box. Alrighty, so inside of the box, and I must say I really dig the artwork on the box cover as well. It's got the 11 in the middle, and Mike, Lucas and Dustin, and he also has the ability to flip it over, and we see Will with a Demogorgon right behind him and those Demodogs, which makes it really nifty, really cool piece of artwork. The same goes for the rule book, and great fully illustrated rule book. Easy setup instructions as well. Setup is kind of in the middle of the book, which is a little weird, but still nothing to complain about. That's the rule book. Got the little insert from Simon Games, and then obviously we've got the board, which we'll look at in a second. And this is also quite cool that they've actually I've already punched out all of the tokens, but they've got the sort of embedded in the plastic, the Stranger Things logo, which I thought was quite cool. Sorry, my box has gone a little all over the place because I haven't been sleeving these, but got the character cards, and these are some of the playable characters from the game. We've got Joyce, Harper, Nancy, Mike, Lucas, and Dustin, and those are the characters you can play. And the minis look quite cool. I mean, here's Harper. You can see definitely by his hat, he's got his hand on his firearm ready to fire it. We've got Joyce, and she looks like she's got those Christmas lights in her hand. Dustin, also signature with his backpack and his cap. Mike with his walkie-talkie. So they all look pretty cool. And then for the enemies or the foes in this game, we've got obviously the Demogorgon, and then the Demodogs are only used in season 2 of the game. And just quickly going back to the character cards, if you look at the character card, each character in the game, which playable character has a specific ability. So in Harper's case, he if any character in your location would gain fear, you can take some or all of it, which is quite useful, because at the bottom of every character card there's this thing called a fear track. You start off obviously at 0, but if your fear ever reaches the end marker, you become terrified and you lose the game. So if any one player were to become terrified, all players lose the game. So the idea of it is obviously to try to manage your fear, and Harper's quite good at assisting players with that. Also has the starting location and movement. For most players, the movement speed is 1, except for Dustin. His movement speed is 2, and they each have their own unique abilities. Like I said, Harper can help reduce fear. Joyce, +1 to rescue Will, which is the objective of the game, and we'll see what that means in terms of the +1. Nancy, she can move a foe in one location, and they all have quite unique abilities. They all start, you'll see at the bottom, all characters have a maximum number of items that they can carry and any number of allies. So all the characters have 2 items that they can carry and any number of allies. The exception, I think, is Lucas. Oh no, Lucas just starts the game with one item. That's his base ability. And other characters in his location may then use his item. So that's Lucas. And then the cards separated into 2 piles. We've got season 1 over there and season 2 over there, and they each have their own set of, these are the encounter cards that you draw at the end of a player's turn, as well as their own set of allies. So the allies for season 1 different for season 2, and then also we've got a list of items and some action cards. Action cards, I suppose you can think of it as the currency for this game, and that's how you play the game. And then some of the other foes you may encounter in this game, and they come with standees as well, are these patrol cars, which you remember from the first season. In the middle of this of the box, we've also got stacks of tokens numbered from 0 to 5, and this is basically the random element within the game. There's no dice rolling, and it's a numerical type game where you're trying to beat numbers, and we'll see what that looks like once we set up. Wait, before setup, let's actually have a look at the board. I mean, this is an absolutely gorgeous looking board. At the top of it, you've got Hawkins, Indiana, and some of the familiar locations, the school, the Wheeler house. You've got Castle Byers down there, and then down below, you've got the upside down version of the game. And again, you've got the same locations. You've got the Byers house, Castle Byers, the lab on both sides, as well as a school, but obviously the upside down version of it. And what you'll be doing in this game, as you'll see when we set up, is you'll be moving through these locations to complete the objective, which for the first season is to rescue Will. So let's quickly do a setup, and we'll talk through the gameplay. Okay, so this is your typical setup for season 1 of the game. In my example, I'm playing as Mike, Lucas, and Dustin, and the character cards will tell you where the starting location are. So in case of Dustin, he starts at the school, Mike is on top at the Wheeler house, Lucas over at the laboratory. You also draw 2 ally cards, and you'll notice that the top of the board has all of these stacks that you've got to place within the circular slots, and will give you the amount of tokens that you place per stack. So in the case of the lab, it's always 2. In the case of the patrol, it's 4. And then for the 11 stacks, it's 2 as well. And then with the foes, you got the Demogorgon down in the upside down part of the school, and the patrol cars, oddly enough, one starts in the upside down part of the laboratory and the other one at Castle Byers. And then right up top, you'll see a very familiar looking character. Yes, that's 11. She's not a playable character in the game, but she can help you within the game. So there are special 11 powers and abilities you can unlock. So for instance, Mike, who's in the Wheeler house, can unlock the ability, and any one of these abilities are applicable to 11. His base ability means that he can call on 11's powers at any location. Otherwise, the other characters have to be sort of in the Wheeler house or the upside down laboratory to unlock those powers, and those powers are very useful in the game. 11, like I said, not a playable character, but you start the game on Act Track 1. If you ever advance to Act Track 3 and the action card deck, which is your currency within the game, has to get shuffled again, you lose the game. So you need to make sure that you beat the objective of the game before the act track advances to that level. So He starts at act track 1 and basically just used as a timing counter to measure the progress of players within the game. That's it for setup. You'll notice that the bottom stacks, which is the upside down stacks, they don't have their top flipped up, so it's going to be harder to try to unravel those. And then there are 3 slots here for rescue will. So what happens in those cases, you take these Demogorgon tokens, there's 5 of them, and the value of these tokens is equatable to the number of slots you have in this Demogorgon square or rectangle over here. So currently we're at 4 stacks, so each of these is equivalent to 4. So what happens is you flip these over. At the start of setup, you take 7 random tokens from the token pool, you shuffle these up, and you create stacks of 4 in each of the rescue wall slots. It will give you one of those circles. It will tell you the amount of tokens that you need to place. So it's 4. So and these tokens range from anything from 4 to 5. You don't know what's there. So your objective is obviously to beat that numerically, playing action cards, and we'll show you what action cards look like in a second. You can also use 11's abilities to try to unlock and look at any one of these stacks. There's ability for that, as well as things like moving around and trying to look at the top of the stacks by doing what is called a get information. But we'll look at that in a second. But that's the board layout and setup. Let's look at the gameplay. So gameplay consists of 2 phases. There's a player phase, and then there's an encounter phase where you draw an encounter card from the encounter deck over here, and that generally means something bad is going to happen. But let's start with the player phase first. Normally, according to the rule book, the player that most recently rode a bicycle gets to go first. I'm going to randomly assume that's just Dustin over here. So you draw 5 cards, or 5 of these action cards from the action deck over here, and you've got to be careful in how you play your action cards. They are the currency within the game. If the action deck is ever depleted, you then shuffle up the discard pile of the action cards, of the action discard, back into the action deck, and then you advance 11 on that act track, and you start drawing more encounters as per the number of cards in the act track. So if you're on track 1, you're drawing 1 encounter at the end of every player phase. When you move over to track 2, you're then drawing 2 of these encounter or scene cards, as they call, per player at the end of their phase, which is obviously not great because it means more bad things happen to you as you progress through the game. So let's quickly just have a look at Dustin's action cards he's drawn. The action cards consist of a value, and that's a numeric value that can help you in beating and defeating these stacks in order to gain an objective as per the location within that on the map, or also in rescuing wall. Then you have some of these action cards have a little walkie-talkie, and that you benefit from if there's any character in the same space as you. If there's any character in the same space as you, then you benefit from using the walkie-talkie symbol. So essentially this 1 then becomes a 2. So Dustin, if he was hoping to recruit, for instance, the ally D is Jonathan, and he were to play his action cards, that's a stack of 3, and that's 3 already. This gives him 2 because he's now got Mike in his space. With the 3 gives him a 5, and then you can choose to play any other number to hopefully beat that stack and get win Jonathan. If you were to play an action card with this alert symbol at the bottom, that's generally not a good thing, because for every alert symbol you've played within your turn, you then draw an additional scene card. One way to sort of mitigate that or prevent having to draw additional scene cards because of alerts that you've played is to clear out the lab. So we've got Lucas over here in the lab, and if he were to play, let's have a look at Lucas's card. Let's just assume that he's playing turn now. Lucas, obviously the one player that starts with an item in his hand, and he's got a +2 to rescue wall, which is a very powerful item to have within the game. So let's quickly have a look at Lucas's cards. He's got some okay-ish cards, 2 with alerts. So we'll put the 1 aside, and assuming we go in with all of that, that's a total of 6, 8, 10, and I think that's overkill for playing the lab. We should go with that, 6, 8. The max on this could be 5, so let's see what that is. That's a 6. Good, so he's played those 3 action cards. Those go into a discard pile. He's now cleared out that stack in the lab. These leftover tokens get shuffled back into the pile, and now you see at the bottom of the lab there's an ignore 1. So for any other character playing a scene card at the end of their turn or during their turn, at the end of their turn they don't draw an additional scene. Playing a card, an action card with an alert during their turn, they don't draw an additional scene card if they played one because of that. And the more you clear out this lab, the more of those cards you can play, or action cards you can play without having to draw scene cards. Okay, and that that action of having to beat these stacks are known as contested actions. So there's a few of those contested actions within the game. In this case, it's whether it's clearing out the lab or recruiting an ally. If Dustin was trying to recruit Jonathan over there, he'd have to beat that stack with his action cards. Or helping 11. If Mike was trying to help 11, Mike can help 11 anywhere on the board. Then he'd have to clear out these stacks to activate one of 11's abilities, and that's generally a good thing for all the players. Or defeating the patrol car, which nobody really wants to do. Fighting the Demogorgon, which means you're going against a stack of 4. There, or rescuing, well, or the bottom stacks of helping 11 again, which has a little bit more powerful abilities down here. So those are known as contested actions. There's also uncontested actions which you can take during your turn. So those involve movement. So any player can move 1 space. Dustin is the only player that can actually move 2. You can move more spaces by playing an action card. So if Mike wanted to move, for instance, from his location in the school all the way to the buyer's house, that's a total location of 1 is his base power, but he did just move at least another 2. So he would have to play this action card, for example, and then move over to the buyer's house over there. Other uncontested actions you can take is a get item. So in this case, in Main Street, there's a get item, and you'll notice there's a +2 over there. What that means is if you were to play a card, an action card for get item, there's a 1. Dustin is playing, that gives him a total of 3 items that he can choose from, and he has to choose 1 and discard the rest. Sorry, these are upside down. That's kind of funny because we are in the upside down. And he would choose, for instance, maybe the +3 to fight, or the +3 to investigate the lab. There are 2 +3 to investigate the lab. We'll take the +3 to investigate the lab for Dustin and discard the rest. They get shuffled back into the item deck. I'm just putting them at the bottom because I'm working with one hand. Other uncontested actions you can do is things like calm down. So if you're in the scrapyard, there's a calm down +2, or get item. Calm down again. For every action you play, you need to play at least 1 of these action cards. So if Mike was to play a 2 to the calm down, that's a +2, a total of 4. So if his fear was all the way up there, he would then reduce that by 4 spaces, which is always a good thing because you do not want your fear track to reach terrified. If you do, all players lose the game. All players also lose the game if the action track advances past the 3rd stage and you have to shuffle the action deck back. So the game is a sort of cat and mouse type game in terms of knowing when to play your action cards and what to do, whether that is recruiting allies, helping 11 at the right time, or going into the upside down to try and rescue all. The other last uncontested action that you can do if you're in the police station, for instance, is to use a gather info. Again, playing a number of action cards to do that. So if Mike was to play a total of 4 action cards as an example, he can then say, okay, I'm gathering info. He can then flip over the top 4 of any stack. So he was going to flip over, for instance, the top 1 of this rescue wall stack, that help 11 stack, that rescue wall stack, and maybe the top of the Demogorgon stack. That gives players a better chance in beating those stacks because now you obviously can see what's at the bottom of that. Once you've recruited an ally as well, so if I was to recruit Jonathan over here to Dustin, then you draw in your ally for that, and you put the appropriate number of tokens into that ally space over there. So in this case, total of 2, and they again face down. They only face up at the start of the game, in the top section of the game, which is Hawkins. If you are ever in a space with an enemy, you can choose to fight that enemy. To fight that enemy, you need to beat its stack. In this case, the patrol car over there. If it was the Demogorgon, you need to beat one of those stacks. And once you've defeated an enemy, that stack is then removed. So in the case of the patrol car, that would get removed, and you then move that foe any 1 space in any direction. But if I was to defeat the Demogorgon, for instance, that gets removed. You don't replenish that that stack. The patrol car one gets replenished, but the Demogorgon one doesn't, which is always a good thing, because now for those Demogorgon tokens that are scattered somewhere inside this help wall stacks, you know that you've reduced it to 3. If you've managed to defeat the Demogorgon 2 more times, then that stack is essentially 1. And if you manage to defeat the Demogorgon 4 times, then you can essentially ignore those ones, and that's generally a good time to go and try and rescue all. So don't be scared to fight the Demogorgon, as we were at the start of our playthrough, and that definitely helps. Yeah, in terms of the gameplay, that's basically it. You're going to be moving around the board, playing your action cards, recruiting allies, getting items, and hopefully eventually rescuing Will before the act track reaches the last point, in which case you most probably will lose. We've played this game a total of 3 times. We've beat it on the 4th time. It's a brutally hard game, but also we enjoy the challenge, and I think that's part of the appeal of the game, is that you've got to really think and carefully plan out how to play these cards. So that's the luck of the draw there a little bit in terms of the shuffle of the deck, but still a really fantastic layout for the game, and a really fantastic overview of the game. On the other side of this board, which I'll show you once I've removed all the tokens, you've got the Season 2. Cool, so this is Season 2 of the game. You'll see Hawkins pretty much the same layout. We've got the school and the lab and the main street again, but some new additions like the pumpkin patch over there. And then down in the upside down, you've got completely separate, different looking layout here. You've got Demodogs as opposed to Demogorgon, and then also you've got these nests and vines tunnel that you need to actually defeat and beat, as well as the gate that I would assume you need to beat in order to close that gate. It says only after rescuing Will, so you still need to rescue Will. But yes, that's the Season 2. Okay, so final and closing thoughts on the game. I think this is a really great game for a great family game, and we were looking for a few of those. This was one of it, was Stranger Things. Then Horrified was the other one I managed to pick up as well, so we're quite keen to start playing this. Really excited to play that game. I've also got, we were looking at quite a few family type games that we can take away on holidays and weekends away. This one, really small box, but really fantastic game, is Tiny Epic Galaxies. There's lots of games in the Tiny Epic range, so please do check them out. I wanted the space version, and then my kids are huge fans of Cluedo. We've played the original Cluedo. Also managed to get them the Harry Potter version of Cluedo, which we'll be playing as well. And all in all, a fantastic game, Stranger Things, the board game. Looking forward to the final season, and that's it from now. Join us next time on Life of Us when we do another board game review. Goodbye.